Right, where do I start? Get the nuts ready. From the beginning, I guess. Around 6 months ago, I bought at the time the cheapest Z4 Coupe in the UK. From the very start, I had big plans for this car. I want to build, in my eyes, the ultimate Z4 Coupe. I have been calling it the Z4 M3. I think I might call it the Z4 Evo. Either way, we're at this point now, 6 months later. I've stripped the car down. I also have the donor car just over there, an E93 M3 with a 4-litre high-revving V8 and the manual 6-speed gearbox. To be perfectly honest, I'm attempting this quite challenging build in a 6x4 gala tent, so a marquee. I have limited tools, I have axle stands and a jack. There's no special thrills. This adds another level of difficulty when it comes to getting the jobs done, but it's not going to stop us from trying to build the best car we can. I have an old Z4 E86. It's the coupe. I have everything stripped out the inside, including the wiring harness. At the end of the last episode, we managed to get the M3 diff tacked in at the rear here. Albeit it's been 3 weeks since I've worked on the car. I've literally left the tools as they were. I just dropped them as I have been working on the Peugeot and I've been away. Anyway, the next big job to do is get the V8 mounted at the front. I have some polyurethane bushes. These are designed for the M3 subframe. However, as we're using the Z4 one, I will have to do some serious mods to these. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do it yet, but let's come up with a plan now. The problem I am facing at the moment is the fact that this mount is so thick. When it's up on the bracket on the engine, it's going to come down way too far. As I need to clear this lower arm, you can see the gap in there is minimal. With that clearance issue, the challenge will be getting this mount thin enough. I think we're just going to have to send it and start cutting this in half. These are cheap ones, so it could be used as a development piece. I think I can get away with the mount being about just over an inch thick. We'll get the grinder on it and see what it looks like. I'll just mark it with some masking tape. This is giving me PTSD from doing the graphics on the Peugeot. You may be thinking at this point, why don't I just buy a mount that is the correct thickness so I don't have to modify it at all? The answer is I couldn't find any with such a low profile, so this needs to be a fully custom job. And to be quite honest, I was unsure how the polyurethane would cut. You can see it's kind of working. The material I am removing is turning into like a melted cheese or candy floss even. Let's hope it doesn't get too messy. Well, that's interesting. What a mess. I'm at the point now I just have to continue and cut the mount in half. Hopefully it will turn out good enough to be able to use. It's cut off fairly clean and I have removed that locating tab. I won't need to use that. That's much better. I've got it bolted in place. Let's see how much clearance we have now. Not a lot, but enough. This side is in place. I have twisted it around so the engine has more support on the mount on the inside. I've done exactly the same on the near side, just need to do it up tight. I now need to make sure the engine is still perfectly square and in place. In theory it shouldn't have moved at all as I've just been working on the back of the car, but I will check. Everything is clear that needs to be. I think it's pretty good. Yeah, we'll go with that. It's now just a case of making a really complicated CAD design for the main part that will hold the mount. It will probably take a few templates to get it right, to come off the subframe, around the mount, and up to that suspension point there. Steady progress being made. I've got a rough idea what I'm doing now. With the basic layout set, I'm just going to work around with the pen, indicating the edges where I can trim it down, to tidy it up and to save some weight. I now have the basic shape sorted. I just want to refine it slightly. Once I marked out the template I had on the car, I lay the piece down on a fresh bit of cardboard and start making version 2 of this CAD design. I trim around the outside with some scissors, then I cut the center holes out with a knife. Once I've done that, we can offer it up on the car again. Plan is to tack it along there, make sure the holes line up, then there'll be a second layer underneath. I can flip this and try it on the other side. In theory, it should be exactly mirrored. I'll get it over there now and we'll check. I remove the cardboard from the near side, switch it over to the off side, and then try and align it the best I can to see if we need to do any trimming. Oh, look at that. It's not too bad. It's a good start at least. Now that I'm happy with version 2 of the template, I can start on one side by transferring it to metal. Again, I'm using 2mm mild steel. With multiple layers, this will be plenty strong enough, and it's good for me because it's easy to bend and work with. I used the new engine mount as a guide for the diameter of the hole I need to cut. Unfortunately, I don't have a hole saw the perfect size. I resort to using a smaller one and drilling multiple holes to get it somewhere near. Once I've tidied up the hole for the mount and the two smaller ones to locate the points on the car, I cut around the edges to remove the piece. I trim all around the edges, and after making a couple of bends to the plates, I bore out the holes slightly bigger so they can locate properly onto the car. It's not far off fitting. I need to bolt this end up flush, then tack the back and twist it around slightly. That's a pretty good start though. Sunday night, straight back in from Peugeot Festival. We have a few hours left on Sunday evening, so it's straight back on to the Z4 build. What I need to do is clean this area up so I can tack the new plate in the right position. I'll pull this back off so I can get access. And I'm just going to use a nylon wheel. I'm just giving it a basic cleanup. It doesn't have to be perfect, as I just need a strong enough weld to hold it in place for now. These parts will all be blasted off before it's fully welded. I now have some makeshift spacers in between the bolt and this plate, which holds it nicely where it needs to be, and we're really not far off having it tacked in the right place there now. Let's get the welder out. As I start welding this first piece on, I plan on making some small tacks here and there so it's easy to remove if I make a mistake. The last thing I want to be doing is putting a load of weld on to then have to go and remove it again. Let me just check to see where the smoke is coming from. I think we're good. This is what we're dealing with now. It's tacked up in place. The mount is still in the correct position. It's still bolted onto the car. I'll leave this side as it is and do exactly the same to the other side. Okay, I've fabbed up the other side. Fingers crossed I can bend this into shape. A bit better than the other side. Let's give it a go. Like I said, this metal is just about thin enough for me to be able to bend it by hand. As long as the vise holds onto the bench, we should be good. I have it bolted in place again. Same drill. Tack it that side. Twist it up. Get a good weld on that side. Then we can look at reinforcing this mount. Once I've put the fire out and made sure the tent wasn't going to burn to the ground, I continued to tack away just like I did on the near side, making sure to hold the plate in the right position to get it where it needs to be, in line with the Z4 subframe. This side is now tacked on. Don't worry, I'll get rid of all of the nasty welding once it's all mocked up. That's it for another day. Back on these engine mounts tomorrow. Right then, since I've tacked those plates on the bottom, on either side, I've made sure the engine hasn't moved. We still have the clearance on the manifold. Everything's square. I'm happy with that. The next job is to make the seat that will hold this bush in place. I need to cut a strip of metal that will go nicely around this bush, hold it in place, then it can be capped off. And once that's done, in the future, I can simply use shims to drop into the bucket I'm going to make to lift the engine up if I have to. We all know now the engine can't go any lower. The sump's already quite low, so that doesn't have to be adjustable. I will get these strips mocked up for both sides, and then I'll run you through the plan of getting it all tacked on in the right sequence. This template is a lot easier to make, as both engine mounts are bolted to the bracket that's attached to the engine block. All I need is a strip of cardboard, roughly the right thickness, and then I can just run my pen around the bottom line. With a quick trim with the scissors, I can check it's the right thickness. I have my cardboard templates ready, I just need to cut them out. I have found a section of exhaust off an old Subaru. It's about the right diameter. I can use it to wrap the strips of metal around. With the old piece of 3-inch stainless pipe, it was easy to knead these strips around the outside. A bit more work to do here. Back on the vise for a bit more fettling. I'd say that's good enough to tack into place. I'll try the other side. I think we're good. There's quite a gap on that side as I've twisted it around to make it fit better, but don't worry because we're going to double skin everything. This is really just to locate the bottom of the mount so I can remove it so I don't burn it when I tack it all into place. At this stage in this particular welding job, I do not want to melt the mount. A, it would completely screw up the welding, and B, I don't want to destroy the mount. The near side was quite easy to get to. I seemed to have good access. I could reach the angles I needed to. Once I moved to the offside, it seemed to get a little trickier to be able to see what I was doing, but with some sweat and some patience, soon enough we have the side walls of these mounts tacked into place. There are a few ways I can go about this. I can get some reinforcement fins welded to the underside of this plate. The goal is to get everything welded that I won't be able to get to once I put the lower skin on. However, I'm quite confined with space and welding upside down if I do it in situ. I think what I will do is get everything fabricated and tacked on that's going to go in the middle, then cut these welds back off, remove it from the car completely, weld everything up, bolt it back on, and then I can carry on getting the rest of it together. Because I had to twist it a bit and bend this area into place, it may still be under stress, so I need to do my best to get it strong enough so when it comes off, it stays relatively in the correct position. Once I've made a set of reinforcement strips for both sides using the CAD method and transferring them to steel, I can start tacking them to the underside of the plate. As you can see now, I've given up with the welding mask and I'm just using the blinking technique. I don't advise anyone to do this, don't take this as guidance. I'm pleased to say though, I didn't get arc eye. There were a fair few pieces to weld on either side, so this took a little time to make sure they were in the right place and weren't going to get in the way of my next move for building up this custom subframe to hold the engine in place. Update, I've taken the mounts out. I've tacked in some reinforcement pieces, which should hopefully hold it in the rough shape I need it to stay in. I have also done the same on this side. I will now cut the welds off and try and get these pieces out. As I'm cutting the plates back out, I'm careful with the placement of the grinder to not cause any unnecessary damage, and as I cut it free I'm looking out to see if there's any flex or any sudden movement in this piece. This would give me a good indication whether there's any stress in the parts or flex, which could give us some issues when we get further down the assembly line. Right, let's see what happens here. That's not bad. Surprisingly, it stayed quite well in place. You can see it hasn't lost its structure there. Excellent. I'll pull the other side off and then we'll weld it all together. I don't want to pull on it hard because I don't want to distort it. It's almost, there we go, perfect. It looks a bit crude, but once we have multiple layers and it's all welded together, it will be fine. So here we have two weird assortments of metal tacked together. It looks a little strange at this point, but this work I'm about to do is important. It's going to be internal in the mount. You won't actually see this part, but nonetheless, it's integral to the process. I'll do small sections, working my way around the different areas. This should hopefully stop as much distortion as possible as it goes together. As you weld two pieces of metal together, most of the time it has a tendency to pull the two bits together and thus actually warps the parts. So a good tactic is to move around the area, jumping from place to place so you don't completely banana the parts by heating up just one side. It may not look it, but it's about 30 degrees outside, so this is some sweaty work. With these two bits welded up, I need to check they fit on the car. I'm hoping we haven't had any distortion. As you can see, we're still good. Nicely placed. I'll check the other side. Very good. There is more work to do on these pieces before I get it tacked back onto the subframe where this part mounts to the chassis. There are these locating tabs. I need to make sure the pieces I'm making locate properly there and is flush with the chassis leg. Therefore, I need to make the holes here double thickness in order for it to sit flush. I will now make 4 custom washers to do that job, as it's probably quicker than going to find the right size washers to buy off the shelf. Like I just said, I don't have time to wait to order some washers online, and certainly in the evening there won't be any stores open. So the quickest thing for me to do is to use some scrap metal, drill out the center holes, simply cut out some washers and then start welding them to my pieces. I need 4 washers in total, 2 for either side. That's the first one done. Moving on to the second one. And then before we know it, we are done. Now I can move on to making the base of the cups. This will be what the engine mounts themselves sit in. Once again, I use the CAD method, and whilst I mark out these, I also do some extra strengthening plates. I have welded more spacers on the end sections, which I still need to grind flat, finish off, and double skin, and these need to be in place so the mount doesn't compress when you bolt it up tight. I have also made some more templates to strengthen this area where the mount curls up, which I will do to both sides, and I've mocked up a template for the cap that holds the mount in place, so they're ready to cut cut out. Slow progress, but we need to get this right. If you were wondering, I know I'm not the best welder myself. I do need to weld this stage because it's going to be sandwiched in the mount and we won't be able to get to that later on. But the plan is to get it all tacked on the car in place. Once I've carried out the rest of the fabrication on the subframe, it will all come off, be shot blasted, fully welded up by someone that's a good welder, so we can be confident that it's going to be strong enough. Then it'll be powder coated with new bushes, etc. So this is just one step of quite a long process, but I need to do all the work that takes a long time to figure out where everything goes and to make sure it's going to work with this application, putting a big engine in a small chassis. So we continue cutting pieces out for this ever-evolving subframe job. I'm in the process of making the plates that cap the top of the area I've been working on. Simply like that. Then I'll weld a strip around the outside. You can now see what I mean. When the bolt is done up tight, it's metal on metal in the middle. There is no way to compress this mount. This area we are working on now is crucial for being structurally sound. This is a healthy load point on the car. Now the S65 V8 is going to be mounted onto the subframe of the Z4. I need to make this part bulletproof. Once I'm happy it's in place, I then get this top cap tacked on. Then I can drill out the 2 holes for the bolts, testing it as I go along. I cracked on and got the mounts tacked back onto the car. I'll show you tomorrow the progress, but we're not far away now from getting this engine under its own weight. Everything has such fine tolerances, but I'm hoping this is going to work straight off without too much re-engineering. And we're back to another 30+ degree day. Nothing like a good baking in this tent. I have the mounts tacked back onto the subframe on the car. I now need to make the piece that joins that part there and goes flat across the bottom, running along that line. Like always, it's just trial and error. I have my CAD plates cut out, the same for both sides, near enough. I have it marked out on the sheet steel. I'll get it cut out and we'll tack it on the car. I've started welding the plate on this side. Just needs a bit of encouragement on this corner. I now have this side welded on. The next step in this fabrication job is to check if everything is still aligned. Once I take the subframe off the car, I need to support the engine, take the steering rack off, remove the subframe. I might put a few more welds across the top on the upper plate. Then once that's done, I can get it back under the car and make sure the bolt holes align perfectly, ensuring it's easy enough to get back on. Once that's done, it can all be finished off and welded up. Good morning. I thought I'd made really good progress last night until I test fitted the lower arm. On a positive note, I don't have to modify this end for it to fit with the extra gap above this part. However, I can't fit it properly because the back part of the arm is touching the mount. Admittedly, I didn't test the wishbone before I welded it to the car. Therefore, I only have myself to blame for this one. I have exactly the same issue on the other side. On the inside, there is a small gap between this piece and the seat where the mount actually sits into. So I should be able to mod it to clear it without losing too much strength. With the wishbone in place, I will now mark the area I need to create some clearance on. You can see from where I'm marking, it's only a small area of this piece that I'm marking, but either way, it's still a problem and we need to resolve it. As I said, exactly the same drama this side. It has contact at the rear. I'll get it marked up. I can now get the arm back off, then try and modify this where it's still on the car, if I can. I may have made my life really hard by welding those plugs in the middle. We'll see. I have made some cuts in the plates. It's not ideal, to be quite honest. I know where I need to make the clearance now for those lower arms. I can take the subframe off, we'll get it on the bench and start some refinements. Get to try the new jack on the engine. With the engine safely supported, here it is. I can now remove the subframe complete with my modifications, and it's the first time we can really see it in its new form. This has been some sort of work. Now let's see how easy this mod is going to be to get it to fit with the lower arm. Oh well, we've come this far. What's a bit more fabrication work? This part, to be honest, is a bit disheartening. After all the hard work, I'm cutting pieces off. It does feel like a step back, but this is the nature of making custom parts like this, especially on this application where the tolerances are so fine. I mark out the areas I think I need to cut before I get the grinder out. After some carefully considered cutting, I can then pry the pieces out that I need to remove. I think the best thing to do is to just remove the material for now. I'll offer it back up under the car, and if I'm happy with the clearance, then we'll get it back off and then start welding everything together. With the plan in motion, I just need to cut the remaining metal off the bottom caps. These are the areas that I drilled holes in the plate to plug weld through to the underside of the mount. It was a good idea at the time, but it really turned out to bite me. I took the rack off to make it easier to get on and off. I have it bolted back up. I have the arms loosely in. We have more clearance now, but it's still very minimal. With the limit set of how low this mount can go down, I just have to work from that point up to know it's not going to foul this. I can afford to space this out a bit more to help with the clearance, ever so slightly. And as you can imagine, it's very similar on this side. Let's get it back off, try and create a bit more space, tack it together, then we'll go for one last fit before we call it done. But we still need to test it with the mounts attached to the engine to check it's all correct. Once again, I'm going back to Europe to do some work. I'm leaving in 4 hours and I'm determined to get this engine mounted in the car, on the engine mount, on my new subframe, albeit it'll just be tacked together. But I want to see if these couple of weeks of hard work have paid off. The next thing I need to do is start tacking some plates onto this, then once again check the clearance. Once that's done, we can seat the mounts into the frame and then look about getting it on the car. Right, wish me luck. I don't have time to make any more mods now, so I'm hoping it's going to fit. Mount going in. Perfect. Let's get the mounts in there. Get the nuts ready to go on the engine bracket. Ooh, it's still warm. Freshly welded. At this stage, as I offer the new modified subframe up under the car, I can in fact finely tune the position of the engine by turning each mount around in its seat. At this point, I'm just guessing. I just need to get it bolted on the car and then we can see where it sits. Let's get the wishbones on now. I've got some spacers to put in the lower arm to help with the clearance issues. Based on the fact the wishbones fitted way better than I thought they would, I decided I could afford a bit more clearance by lowering the end that goes towards the back of the car down slightly. Only a few mil, but that makes all the difference. Some alignment issues now with the subframe. Probably because I got the engine mount under pressure. I'll be back. I've had a bit of a fight with this side. I couldn't get that to line up brilliantly. I did manage to do it, however, when I take it back off again, I'll make the locating holes a little bit wider so there's a bit more tolerance to make it easier to install. That side's gone okay. The engine's quite jacked up. The engine mounts aren't settled into the buckets yet. Now is the moment of truth. I'm going to make sure I'm happy they're located properly and then we'll let the jack off. It's the first time the engine is mounted in the car without an engine crane or a jack. Bit of a milestone. Right, let's just go for it. Ooh, nice. Very nice. And it's in. Solid. Checking the square. It's in place. The gap on either side is fairly even. The mounts are nicely sat where they need to be. It's pretty solid. I did just check the back of the gearbox and it's not quite in the center of the tunnel now. When I make the mount for that, I'll have to ensure I keep the engine aligned. At the moment, I can still twist the mounts because I haven't fixed them through the subframe yet. Because the studs in the mounts are offset, I can twist either side to move the engine left or right. So yeah, it's pretty positive. I still need to check if the engine's tipped. No. I think we're good. I do need to check that the sump doesn't contact the steering rack, that old issue there. I'm glad it's all tacked in place, but even just to get to this stage, it's taken a lot of work in this heat. Speaking of which, I need to go and rehydrate. When I'm back from Europe, we shall continue with the gearbox mount. And we're back after another busy week in Estonia. I ended last week's part of the build by lowering the engine onto the custom mounts I've made. With it all tacked in place, I'm happy to move on for now. I want to get the gearbox in its final place so I can start mocking up the mounts for that. At the moment, I have good clearance on the exhaust manifolds-ish. And I can still twist the polyurethane mounts in their seats to finely tune it. First we'll get under the car and I'll see exactly where this gearbox is sat. The back of the gearbox has moved over slightly. I need to get this in its final place now before I can start mocking up the mount. And I'm hopefully going to achieve that by jacking the engine up, rotating the mount on this side, and because the stud is offset, it will act a bit like a cam and change the position of the engine. Well, that's the plan anyway. I can just take a little pressure off the engine mounts with the jack, then return the mounts themselves by hand. This is a good sign as I've left enough clearance in my fabrication work to be able to do this, whilst at the same time not allowing play to cause vibration issues. It's just guesswork at this point. Check underneath. Sheer guesswork, but it turned out pretty good. I think from here we can fettle that into the middle. Let's start coming up with a plan for this mount. I'll start by bolting the OE mounts to these brackets on the gearbox. They're in good condition, there's no play in them. They will be perfect for this job. One there, next. I will uprate these mounts. You can see there is a fair bit of play in these, so I have some polyurethane we can get in there. They're supposed to be the right size, but they look a little big to me though. Let's focus on these two for now. This mount is going to be really tricky to make, almost as much so as the engine mount. I have different heights on the mounts as the brackets on the gearbox itself are offset. I have the 2 bolt holes on this side on the chassis is flat. However, the holes on this side, there is a step. Then I need to incorporate the bracket that holds these 2 mounts. Either joint to this piece, or I could utilize another mounting point further up the chassis. We shall see, but nothing is symmetrical. It'll probably take a lot of cutting and trimming again. I'm slowly making progress. I've located the mounting points in the chassis and the studs on the mounts. I now need to mark it up for some trimming. This piece is actually quite big, so well done to me if I get this aligned first time. I follow the line of scribble with a pair of scissors, and then we can offer this up on the car again. With it all trimmed up, this is what it currently looks like. I can probably start saving a bit of weight and trimming the overall size down. And I'm back again. It's been a busy week so far, but I am doing my best to squeeze some work in on this thing. I did cut out my template a little bit earlier, a basic trim. Now I need to drill the holes in. Then we'll see about folding it to get it into the right position to go on to the car. The odds of me making the bends in this piece and aligning all 6 holes is going to be extremely thin, but I will accept the challenge. The plan, to be honest, is just hope for the best. I need to almost guess how much distance I'm going to lose on each bend, as it's not going to fold completely flat. There'll be a slight curve to each angle. This you can only really gauge after some experience of doing this for some time. It's quite easy to get wrong, and this has to be spot on as it's holding the whole gearbox in place. Once I think I have the right position, I then use a hammer and brute force to get this thing bent. The first bend I've made was simply brute force. However, the second fold in this smaller area with the 2mm steel, it's going to be too much hard work in the vise on the bench with the tools I have. I'll make a small cut along this line, get the fold where I need it, and then when we're finally done, we can obviously weld that seam back up where I've taken some of the metal out. It's done. I've made a small groove up here. I hope you haven't taken too much material off, otherwise it could snap off. Either way, we're going to find out now. Made it. Stayed in one piece. Now I need to make a nice curve in this area. Where can I find a curve? Oh, that M3 brake disc would work. Okay, time to offer it up. Got potential here. I have manipulated it a bit more, and it's starting to come together a bit now. Ish. You get the idea. I didn't film much from the end of last night. It didn't end particularly well. As I was getting out from under the car, I did manage to gash my knee open on this rather sharp, freshly cut bit of metal. And I managed to cross thread one of the bolts going into the chassis, which we'll have to fix. And I'm still having some fitment issues. I'm gonna have another look at this now, and potentially I'm thinking about completely redesigning this. But first I will have a little think to make sure I proceed in the right way. I've taken this back off. I've decided to chop this end slightly, make a few changes, and then we'll get it back on the car. And then I'm going to probably tack this side together, and while it's off I'm going to elongate these holes slightly to make it a bit more easier to fit. I've cut this section off and I've made sure the bolts align. This is the one with the dodgy threads. I'm going to have to sort that out at some point. I might even make them bigger, to be fair, as we've got a bigger engine and gearbox. Could upgrade the bolt size, get these nipped up. Oh, this is getting exciting now. The engine and gearbox are almost bolted in with no assistance from any jacks. Okay, I have it all in the right place. I'll get this seam tacked together, then we can drop the jack and see what we're dealing with. Okay, we're getting close now. This thing is almost supporting the gearbox. I get the earth strap onto the plate. I get some tacks onto the seam. It sounds like I need to turn the wire speed up. I hate welding upside down. Oh shit. Fire. Fire. I now have it tacked in place. Let's get the jack out of the way and see how it sits. Oh, that's good. There wasn't a huge amount of pressure on it then. There we have it, engine and gearbox in the car. Another good milestone, hopefully in the right place. I'll check the clearances. Needless to say, I need to do a lot more reinforcements on this, and I'm going to incorporate the mounts there also, but at least I have something to work from now. As ever, chaos in the build tent, but now with the mounts for the engine and the gearbox mocked up, we can start thinking about getting things like the prop, the drive shafts, all the suspension setup, which will be another step closer to turning this project into a rolling chassis. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below with any thoughts you have. Go subscribe, and I'll see you very soon.